the MP on ZiFM Stereo.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to Ask the MP. I am your host, Brian Sithole. If you are tuned in from Chimanimani, 91.3, Byte Bridge 106.1, Mutora Shanga 97.6, Nyangana 8.2, Kadoma 105.2, Victoria Falls 106.5, my hometown, Mutare 95.4, and Harare 106.4. Would love to also have you participate in tonight's discussion by sending through a message on our WhatsApp platform 0772 168 045 0772 168 045. Let's talk, let's engage on the subject that we will be discussing on this exciting series that we are starting on Ask the MP that we are calling Skill Up Zimbabwe. This series is coming from an appointment that was made by His Excellency President Emmerson Mnangagwa on the 11th of September 2023 when he announced his cabinet, where he introduced a new ministry known as the Ministry of Skills Audit and Development, a ministry that is headed by Professor Paul Mavima, and we are here to talk a little bit about all issues to do with the skills that we have as a country, where we stand in terms of our needs, in terms of us getting to the country's national vision 2030 of becoming an upper middle income economy. And to kickstart this exciting series that is going to see some of you getting prizes, getting some little giveaways courtesy of the ministry, I am joined by the Minister of Skills Audit and Development himself, Professor Paul Mavima. Professor, good evening and welcome to ZiFM Stereo.
Thank you, Brian, and let me greet all your listeners and viewers. I'm very happy to be here as always.
We're also excited to have you. Professor Mavima is one person who's always willing to come and discuss issues of national interest, and we really appreciate that willingness that you have to always engage with our listeners. There's one more thing I'm going to talk about that happened in September, but I'll talk about it at 8. And before we get to that, let's get into our conversation and talk about the issue of skills audit and how it differs from other labor market surveys. What really is skills audit? Some might be wondering, would you like to explain?
Yes. The skills audit aspect in the mandate of our ministry is a process by which we identify current skills, knowledge, and competencies that our people possess, what we call our skills base for the nation. So it is that process where we say what competencies do we have, what specific skills do we have, what knowledge do we have. This is very important for purposes of planning our training programs in the nation. It tells us where we are lacking, and therefore our training institutions, including colleges and universities, we can direct them to then work on making sure that we have those competencies in the country. Schools audits also assess actual competencies that are available in the country. For example, in 2018, after an audit, we arrived at a conclusion that we had a skills base of about 38%. Some areas were good, other areas were very bad, and on average we said we were at 38%. Labor market surveys, on the other hand, they produce data on employment rates, on wages, job vacancies, and general workforce demographics, including, how many people of what age are in our labor force, which sectors employ the highest number of people? What are the average wages, for example? That's the labor market surveys. With skills audits, we are looking at what competencies are there in the country. For example, do we have adequate engineering competencies? Do we have adequate agronomy competencies in the country? Do we have adequate social work competencies in the country? Do we have adequate electrician competencies in the country? That's an audit. It looks at current competencies, skills, knowledges, but it also tries to focus what skills, competencies, and knowledges are we going to need in the future, so that we can start preparing for those needs in the future.
Right. I'm still stuck at 38% being where we stood as a country in 2018. Your ministry is now 2 years old. Have you managed to revisit those figures to see if we are improving or if it's even getting worse? If we're at less than 38% now, where do we stand in terms of our skill set as a country?
We a lot of work has gone on, Brian, since 2018. There's been a revamp, as you know, of the education sector. There is so much talk about Education 5.0, but beyond extending university responsibilities to innovation, as well as to manufacturing, which is now taking place at our universities, there's been a thorough reorganization of the programs that are offered at universities, new programs coming on board, whereas you wouldn't find things like AI, artificial intelligence, prior to 2018 in our universities. Currently, you go to any university and you will encounter programs that are teaching AI and other digital skills in all our universities. We are increasing our emphasis on areas that have to do with STEM, and you see the conversations that government has been engaging in as far as that is concerned, encouraging the uptake of STEM education, which leads to the production of human capital in the shortage areas such as medicine, such as engineering, in the mining sector, as well as the various agricultural professions. So there's been a lot of work that has been going on. Is it enough? No, it is not. We are still pushing. We did consultations since the formation of this ministry across the country, and we are realizing that we still have those shortages. Maybe not to the extent of having a skill base of 38%, but surely a lot of the areas still have shortages. The same areas like medicine, like the various engineering areas, agricultural, mining, engineering, all those still have shortage. Health, for doctors and other professions within the health sector, we still have shortages.
It is to show us the MP. I'm your host, Brian Sithole, and tonight we are talking about skills audit and development. And who better to have in the studio but the Minister of Skills Audit and Development himself, Honorable Professor Paul Mavima, who is my guest tonight. He is helping us to understand the role that skills audit plays in terms of national development. We've got a vision that we're moving with as a country, Vision 2030. We're about to also get into the National Development Strategy 2, NDS, and one of the critical issues is also matching our skills to our needs as a country. And so tonight, the Minister of Skills Audit is here to explain to us some of the actions that are being taken at cabinet level, at government level, to ensure that we are able to have such happening. So, Honorable Minister, how do skills audits help in matching workforce skills to the country's economic needs?
The audits basically are based on an understanding of the aspirations of the nation. Currently, we are working with NDS 1 going into NDS 2. There are specific programs and projects that have been identified by government which need to be implemented. And wherever you talk about implementation of any program, government program, private sector program, in every sector of the economy, the moment you talk about implementation, you are talking about human capital. It's people who do the work. It's people who do the construction, and in construction you have civil engineers who design. You have architects who are also responsible for design. Then you go down. When you start the actual construction, you have the builders, you have the motorized equipment drivers, and those who repair that equipment, all that. So from the stated aspirations of a nation, we can then say what kind of human capital do we need in order for us to be effective as well as efficient in the implementation of these programs. So as a ministry, we are guided by those national programs and policies in coming up with the skills audits to say, do we have sufficient, do we have optimal human resources to carry out what the country needs to take us to Vision 2030, for example, as articulated by the leader of this country. So that's what we do. You also have to understand that in many ways, the human capital element is such an important element in all the plans of government. So wherever we are talking about the development of this nation, as much as we plan for infrastructure development, for the development of industry, for the development of the tourism sector, we always say, let's also think in terms of the human capital that goes with, the successful achievement of all these programs. So in the planning itself, there is a human capital element that is infused in it.
Right. I like how you have brought in planning because, as you mentioned, as you rightfully put it, there is nothing that we can do without understanding where we stand in terms of our skills as a country. And so one of the major issues that come to mind is that of being scientific in our planning, of having a database, of having data which supports the skills that we have vis-a-vis the skills that we need as a country.
Yeah.
How are we doing in terms of coming up with that? Do we have a database now in terms of the skills that we have?
That's part of the big mandate that we have. Skills audit help us in matching workforce skills to economic needs by serving as a bridge between the labor market and the educational training institutions. So, in other words, our planning has to know exactly what we have. We have to have that data that tells us how much of each competence do we have in the country. What we are doing as a ministry is to put together that kind of data, but also to be able to analyze it in ways that allow us to really contribute towards evidence-based policy development in the country. This is not going to be just for training purposes. Even those who plan for industry are going to need this data, and they are going to need it as analyzed, when they come to our ministry, they should be able to say, we need to understand this aspect of, the skills composition of this country, and then we should be able to produce reports based on the data that we'll have collected. So we have teamed up with ZiMStat to make sure that all the audits that we do generate usable data that can contribute to the planning that we need as a ministry, but the planning that all the other ministries, agencies, and departments of government will need, even the private sector. Investors, for example, when they come in, they need to know what kind of skills base this country has. Do they have the necessary skills that we will need in order for our investment to yield the results that we have set for ourselves? So the issue of information, data, properly captured, but also with the appropriate methodologies for analyzing it is important. This is why the National Statistical Agency, ZiMStat, is our key partner in the audits that we'll be doing. We want to have a national database that is very credible and that is going to be useful in the development of policies that are evidence-based.
Right, and as a follow-up to that, I would also want you to, I know you had talked about it in brief, but maybe just to further explain the challenges that we as a country may face if we don't come up with such a database, if we don't have that database.
We will be muddling through if we don't have that information. We will not know what training programs to run. We will always have this disconnect between what industry needs and what our training institutions are churning out. So we need to have this information so that this country is in full knowledge of what needs to be done in order to develop the human capital that we need. We will, without proper skills, a country cannot develop. The development of a country is inextricably linked to the development of its human resources. The human resources are what drive the development of a nation. This is why typically those countries that have done very well in terms of their training programs, they also tend to do very well in terms of pushing for higher levels of economic growth, even higher rates of economic growth. You know, some of my colleagues always say, "Apana thoughts." Yeah, you really have to do the basics that are needed in order to get the human capital that pushes your national agenda of development and of prosperity.
Right, you've answered my next question that I was going to ask you, because I wanted to ask around how real-time skills data and analytics improve planning. So you have also talked about that
Yes,
in your last
yes.
two responses. And as such, I would want us to look at the sustainable development goals that we have. We've
Yeah.
got two very specific ones. We've got SDG 8, which
Yeah.
speaks to issues of decent work, as well as SDG 4, which speaks to issues of quality education.
Yeah.
How then does a skills audit report also assist us in ensuring that we attain these two SDGs?
SDG 4 is really central to the whole process of training and educating people. The ministry that I head now looks at the development of our skills and competencies in a holistic manner. We have to think in terms of the foundational preparations that take place in basic education, which is your ECD level all the way to Form 4. The curriculum has to speak to the needs of the country. When we say we have gaps in the STEM area, it also means that we have to provide quality STEM education from as early as ECD. Get our learners interested in science, in technology, including ICTs, as early as possible, so that we have a pipeline of people who will then transition to high school, doing the sciences and technology studies, and into our universities. If we miss it at the basic education level, it also means that we'll miss it at the higher and tertiary education level. And so we'll always have shortages as far as STEM is concerned. We really need to solidify the various areas where we see gaps. We also see gaps in terms of entrepreneurship. So we need to develop from that early level. There are implications for funding of the education system. And you know what SDGs say. They are driven by international protocols that say certain percentages of a national budget has to go into education in order to drive the quality as well as accessibility of education. The SDG 8 on decent work is a little bit removed from the basic mandate of this ministry, which is the skills audits and the development of human capital. It is about the workplace.
Right.
It is about issues of remuneration, It is about issues of making sure that workplaces are not hazardous. It is about making sure that there is no forced labor, child labor, and other vices that really make the workplace not as conducive as it should be. So decent work is very important in a country, because then it also pushes the motivation of our human capital. But it's a bit removed from the core mandate of this ministry, which focuses on the development of skills and competencies needed in the country.
Right, it's your show Ask the MP, and I'm your host, Brian Sithole, and tonight we're talking about skills audit and their significance towards national development. I'm joined in the studio by the Minister of Skills Audit and Development, Honorable Professor Paul Mavima, and we're having that conversation. And as I mentioned, if you want to be a part of this conversation, do send through a message on our WhatsApp platform, 0772 168 045, 0772 168 045. Now, the ministry was created when Cabinet was formed on the 11th of September 2023. And then just a few days ago, on the 25th of September, Honorable Professor Mavima was celebrating his birthday. I won't mention Kutimakwere Mangani, but he was celebrating, and as ZiFM Stereo, we're happy to celebrate with him. And as such, I'm going to play a very special song. I'm going to take a short break, and I'm going to play a very special song. And the song that I've chosen to play for Professor Mavima is Happy Birthday by Kariko Galenad Jagata. I know you love Jagata, so I'm just going to play that song for you. We'll be right back on Ask the MP. It is your show Ask the MP, and I'm your host, Brian Sithole. We're just listening to the sounds of Kariko Galena Jagata with Happy Birthday, a very special song that I played for my guest, Professor Paul Mavima, the Minister of Skills Audit and Development, who recently celebrated his birthday. His birthday was actually on the 25th of September. Prof, I know Munofara Jagata. Why is that so? What do you like most about his music?
No. Jagata's music is full of meaning. You listen to any of his songs, you really get some instruction from it. So that's why. And he also is a poet. Yeah, and I enjoy his music. I've enjoyed his music from the earliest times. Even when I was out of the country, I would really listen to Jakarta and feel a nostalgia about my homeland. I've also worked with Jakarta on a number of projects, especially around the rural schools library project, which he contributed together with the likes of Baba Namai Charamba in promoting, resource mobilization for libraries for rural skills. So he is also an other regarding musician. He has a very purposeful life. That's why I like him.
A very big shout out to Leonard Jagata. We appreciate that you're talking about the work that he has done in terms of development as well. And I also toured your stand during the Zimbabwe Agricultural Show, and I was impressed to also see Maskiri and Tererai at your stand, showing that you also work with artists. Maybe before we even get to some of the questions that we'll be discussing, it's important to talk about the arts sector in terms of skills. How we're doing as a country, and why is it that now Kakanollywood came Zimbabwe? What can we do to really get there?
We need to first of all, we need to just encourage. I think talent is here, but we need to create an environment of incentives to promote it. I'm glad that I understand there was a premiere of a film which features my Titi, and I think there was some collaboration with some international artists as well. So we need to push. We almost got there during the time when this country had such movies like Neria. We hoped that the film industry would take off at that particular point in time. But then, I mean, a number of factors led to the slow takeoff. But, you know, even the music industry is up and down. The period where Maskiri and the whole crew, Chamembe, the urban groups era, you know, you also look back and say, we should have just continued. It's not to say that we have not seen new talent coming, but it's almost like we go through a period of a boom, and then there is a slowness again. So we need to continue to create the environment that promotes, you know, the arts. Not just music, but also all the creative arts. And it's an area which has also been identified as having some gaps, and for which we need, as a government, to promote, and we need to promote it right from, again, the foundational levels, and we continue to build on it. Most of our artists are not trained in schools.
They're natural.
They are natural, yeah. But we also need to come up with a deliberate program.
Yeah, maybe even
to enhance those talents.
Right.
And to make sure that we reach optimal levels.
Right.
Imagine how much money flows into India, flows into Nigeria because of the development of the film industry that has taken place in those two countries. In the world, they have become centers for the production of film. It's almost like, you know, replicas of Hollywood. This is why Nigeria is Nollywood,
yeah,
and India is Bollywood. So this is possible if there is proper, you know, facilitation and proper incentives provided.
All right, it is your show, Ask the MP. I'm your host, Brian Sithole, and I like where we're going with the conversation because we've just touched on a very important sector, the creative and entertainment sector that you've mentioned that, you know, with a bit of more investment, with some bit of training, we can actually see a boom in that sector. And so that brings me to a question around how skills audit can also play a role in sector-specific growth strategies, because we've just talked about the arts, but there are many other sectors that we can talk about. So where do you come in? How do you come in as a skills audit?
Let me give you an example. We are currently doing the skills audit for the agricultural sector. And it's us, the agricultural sector led by the ministry, but also including all the stakeholders around agriculture, including the private sector, companies, the state enterprises. So we are working on that right now, and we have completed a sensitization program across the country, where all the stakeholders have been told about the coming data gathering. We are working again with ZimStat. So it's our ministry, the Ministry of Agriculture, and ZimStat working together to identify the specific skills needs in the ministry, in the sector of agriculture. And we hope to come up with very specific recommendations that will ensure that this sector, its various branches, are taken care of in terms of their skills needs. You know, agriculture now, a big thing is climate change. We need to have skills that will allow us to mitigate against climate change. We need experts in irrigation development. We need experts in the development of dams of various sizes, but we also need experts in other water harvesting methodologies that could be used in order to mitigate against climate change. We need to understand our soils, so those responsible for us really analyzing our soils and making sure that we have the appropriate crops for the specific soils are there. So that mapping of the entire country is necessary. We need those in seed production, for example, so that we come up with varieties, again, which can withstand adverse weather conditions, but which also give us the highest yields possible. So these skills have to be in the country if we are to achieve food security, nutrition security, but also if we can become a country that can generate income for itself, maybe through the export of food, of various kinds of food. Currently, we have become a very important exporter of blueberries. We have to continue to build on our capacities to produce various, kinds of foods that we can export. So skills audits can focus on specific sectors. And currently we are focusing on agriculture, recognizing the primacy of it as a foundational sector for our economy. We used to say whenever our agriculture coughs, the entire economy catches a cold. That still is the case. If we don't do well in agriculture, it affects almost all the other economies. So we need to know the skills that we need, the skills that are missing, the skills that we're going to need in the future in the agricultural sector, so that whatever programs we run are going to be successful.
All right, and there's a question that that is playing on my mind, which was asked at the recently held Youth Inclusive Budget Conference at Parliament, where a young person stood up and said, some of us are going to vocational training centers, and zvatiri kudzidza ikoko and what we need and where we're going as a country doesn't seem to match. We're still learning carpentry and baking. In as much as those are important, we're now in a world of AI and all that. And so considering the number of VCTs that we have, as well as other centers, for example, that are run for persons with disability and all that, how do we also ensure that those centers also move with the times and they also help in closing this skills deficit that you are talking about?
Yeah, part of what we do is to also help the ministries that are responsible for training in assessing and analyzing both the curriculum offered at these training institutions, but also to look at the human capital within those skills. Within those institutions, which means the trainers themselves, are they up to speed? And thirdly, to look at facilities in those institutions. So on the issue of curricula, it will be important. It is always important to say, are the VTCs producing the skills that we need? What needs to happen in order to update the curricula of the VTCs? We have about 60-something, 65 or so in the country that are government VTCs. They also have to be modern in terms of both the pedagogy of it, but also the equipment. If you train people with outdated equipment, they can't go into a job situation and perform properly because you are not giving them up-to-date skills. So indeed, we have to look at the curriculum and say, are we moving with the times? And what needs to happen in order for us to reform that curriculum so that it's reflective of what is needed in the workplaces, and making sure that the people coming out of those institutions have the skills and competence needed. So the Minister of Youth is largely responsible for the vocational training centers in the country. And they have a program to revamp both the curriculum as well as the facilities at those institutions. And we work with them as far as that is concerned.
All right, I'm just going to look at a few questions that have come through from our listeners. We've got Nyasha Tota here, who's just letting us know that he's tuned in. Very good evening, Brian. How are you doing? It's Nyasha Tota. Thank you, Nyasha, for that. We also have the Simba Twins Association saying that they are receiving us loud and clear, and they're happy to be tuned in. We have another listener here who says, good evening, I'm Love Mo Munyoro from Mount Darwin. Thank you so much for the show. We're glad that you tuned in, Love Mo. We have another listener who's saying they are tuned in from Lawayo. And here another one says, hi, presenter. What is the ministry doing to stop skilled labor from going to Western countries and America? I think we are losing skilled people to those countries because they are offered high salaries. I think that's one question that I would pose to you, that we invest so much in training people as a country and they leave.
Yes,
what can be done to stop that?
The fundamental solution to that is what His Excellency is already doing in terms of making sure that our economy takes off. And I'm really glad that all the signs now are indicating that we are an economy that is on the rise from the doldrums that we experienced for over 2 decades. We were in an economic downturn. But since the coming of the Second Republic, we have seen a revival in the manufacturing sector. We have seen an upsurge in the mining sector. We have seen a development in the agricultural sector, and the statistics are there to show. So the fundamental solution to skills flight is having an economy that can absorb those skills. In fact, people do a cost-benefit analysis. If you are a Zimbabwean, Zimbabwe is home. So there is something that you attach to being at home. But you also look at, you are raising a young family. You need to have a few things in place. And so if the home ground is not providing all that you need, and your cost-benefit analysis realizes that you'll be better off elsewhere, people tend to move to go there. But as our economy picks up, we'll then see a reversal of that trend. And I'm glad that our economy is picking up. And now opportunities are there for people to see. There are young people in agriculture. We have taken to agricultural entrepreneurship. And more of our people who have moved to the diaspora will see these opportunities and come back. In mining, we have seen people who have done extremely well. And look around the country. And see the changes that are taking place. You know, it's almost like on a day-to-day basis in terms of the construction sector. You know, the various buildings that you see going up. If you haven't been in one of the towns, like Kwekwe, for example, for the past 3 months, you go there, you find it's a completely different place altogether in terms of housing development, the development of buildings for business, you know. So our economy is on the upward trend, and sure, you know, as sure as the sun rises from the east and sets in the west, we are going to see a reversal of the brain drain.
All right.
There are more and more of people in the diaspora who are now looking for opportunities back home, especially in the area of entrepreneurship, in sectors such as agriculture, mining, in tourism, and some who are actually setting up various kinds of factories. So I'm sure that we'll get there. We'll get to a point where the region will be flocking to Zimbabwe. This is a prophecy that I want to put across for this nation.
Okay. When do you see that happening? From where you see it, would you say maybe 5 years from now?
No. I already see trends where even our diaspora is coming back. We get all these calls all the time. But I can assure you that in the next 5 years or so, Zimbabwe will be a completely different place in terms of the level of economic development. We are not just talking about upper middle income. Yeah, our sights will be much higher than that by the end of this Vision 2030.
All right. We're hoping that we will be able to also have a conversation, follow up on that. Pa Vision 2030 kuti, okay, where are we, Prof? He has prophesied that vanhu vachadzoka munyika. There was a question that had been asked about remuneration. I think this is for a different ministry. That's for the Ministry of Public Service, Labour and Social Welfare. They're responsible for that. As mentioned by Prof Mavima, his ministry's mandate is to constantly check on the skills that we have and also the needs that we have as a country, and make sure that we are heading in the right direction in terms of upskilling the country. And so as we conclude the show, I would want to also find out from you, Prof, how often do you think Zimbabwe should conduct skills audits, and also the role of stakeholder participation in that?
Our mandate is to do sectoral skills audit all the time. When we finish agriculture, we'll jump to manufacturing, for example, or the whole industry aspect, which is your manufacturing, your processing, of your value addition of various things. So the manufacturing sector is going to be our next target. The mining sector after that, the tourism. In fact, what we're doing with tourism is, as we do all these other ones, we are going to be training for making sure that Zimbabwe is a good host for our tourists, and that we can start now. But we'll also be doing a skills audit. But we already know what is needed in order to enhance Zimbabwe's capacity as a host for our tourists. Yeah. So we continue with these. In fact, the mandate says do sectoral audits every 3 years, but every 10 years do a comprehensive national skills audit. Okay. So we did a comprehensive skills audit in 2018. We are supposed to do another one by 2028. Meantime, we are doing these sector-specific audits.
Great. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. We have about a minute left. And so, Professor, I want to thank you for coming through, but can you just give us your parting shot?
The parting shot really is to say, Zimbabwe, you need to embrace this revolution that we are pushing for, of upskilling yourself, reskilling yourself, or just skilling yourself. This is what we are pushing for. We need a revolution for both technical skills, but also the soft skills. Let's create leaders in this country. Let's create entrepreneurs in this country. Let's create innovators in this country. Let's create critical thinkers in this country. So the technical skills, you can get them at various institutions, our technical and vocational institutions, our polytechnics, our universities. All those levels you can get your technical skills. But at the same time, think in terms of financial literacy, entrepreneurship, ability to communicate, all those soft skills as well. So it's let's skill, let's upskill, let's reskill, so that we have the competencies that will move our country to the promised land.
Right, we're living in a fast-changing environment, and so it's very important that we're constantly skilling, upskilling, or reskilling, as my guest tonight has said. I think this is the only time I'll be allowed to call him the birthday boy. Still in the celebratory mood. He recently celebrated his birthday. Prof, thank you so much for coming through to have this conversation and to kickstart this series that will be running.
I'm honored, Brian, to have been on this show. And I really thank you for this opportunity.
Great. We look forward to next week when we'll be looking at why now in Zimbabwe's history. Why are we focusing on skills audit now? And for now, it's me, your host, Brian Sithole, saying good night, stay safe, take care of yourselves and of each other. I am out.